Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you had a lot of really great questions today in class, but we didn't get through all of the examples I'd like to. So we did get through using the x and y intercepts. So remember, when you're finding the x-intercept, you just plug in the value of y as 0, and when you're finding the y-intercept, you plug in the x value of 0. Then just solve those equations, and that's going to give you the point you want to graph. That'll give you 2 points, the x-intercept and the y-intercept, unless, of course, it's a y equals or an x equals problem. Now, the other way of graphing, and your book will just say, graph the following, is using a table of values. And we've done this before. We did this in Chapter 2. So, if there are no fractions, you're going to use the input, or the x values, of -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, and then graph those points. Now, if there are fractions, you're going to want to use a multiple of the denominators because you want to get rid of the fractions. It's really, really hard to graph points when you're trying to go like 6/3 or 7/8. So you're going to use a multiple of the denominator. In this case, the LCD is 4. Oops, sorry about that. The LCD is 4, so I use -8, -4, 0, 4, and 8. And then you're going to graph those points. Let me show you what that's going to look like. So we started with this one, which was the same equation we used at the top, but this time we're going to put in an input-output chart. So for the first one, I'm using, because there's no fractions, I'm going to use -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And everywhere I see x, or my input, I'm just going to put these numbers. And that's going to give me my output, or my y value. And that creates the point. Okay, so we did the first one in class, but let's keep going. So now for x, I'm going to put in -1 for my domain. So y equals 5 plus -1, which means that y equals 4. So this gives me the point of -1, 4. I'm going to graph all these points at the end. Okay, so now we're going to put in 0, so y equals 5 plus 0. It's an easy one. 0, 5. And if I look closely, this is going to be a y-intercept, because look, x is 0. So if you look, you can see that it's going to cross the y-axis at 5. And for every x that is 0, it's a y-intercept. It's good to just recognize those. Now we'll put in 1, y equals 5 plus 1. Give me a hard time. Gives me 6. You should be noticing something here. Look at this. For every increase by 1, this increases by 1. Look at that. It's a function. It's going to change by the same amount each time because a line has to be a straight line. So it's good to recognize that. Okay, next one, we'll put in 2. 1 plus 2 gives me 7. So now I have all these points to graph. I'm going to go down to my graph without forgetting my arrows, and I'm going to graph the points. -2, 3, so -2, 1, 2, 3. It's -2, 3. -1, 4. -1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now remember I said that was going to intercept the y because it was at 0, 5, and anytime x is 0, it's going to cross the y-axis. It's good to recognize that. 1, 6, and 2, 7. Oops, sorry about that. Now, I need to draw a line between each of these and put arrows at the end because I could have chosen any values. I could have chosen -6, and that would have given me a value, -5, -4. So this line goes on and on forever. If for some reason you do your points and it doesn't make a line, then you did something mathematically wrong. So go back and look at that. Now on the next example, this is one with a fraction, okay? So this is y equals 1/3 x minus 1. I don't want to choose -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, because if I put those in, look what happens. Y equals 1/3 times -1 minus 1. I'm going to come up with -1/3 minus 1. I'm going to have funky fractions. There's a way to make sure that you don't have funky fractions, and that's just to use a multiple of the denominator. So instead of using -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, I'm going to use -6, because that would be a multiple, times 2, -3 times -1, and that's going to get rid of the fractions. So y equals 1/3 x minus 1. And this one for my input or my domains, I have -6, -3, 0, 3, and 6. I chose those numbers on purpose. I want you to get used to using -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, and a multiple of the denominator. You literally could use any numbers, but these ones are the easiest. It's going to make your job a lot easier. Okay, so I'm going to put in y equals 1/3 times -6 minus 1. I'm going to reduce that, and that gives me 2. So I have -2 minus 1, or -3. So y equals -3. And that's way easier to graph. -6, -3 is way easier to graph than what we did up here, which was going to be -1, -1, and 2, -1 and 1/3. So just, listen carefully, watch for the denominator, and do it this way. Y equals 1/3 times -3 minus 1. I'm going to reduce that, and I'm going to get that -1 minus 1. Y equals -2. So this is going to be -3, -2. Now 0, y equals 1/3 times 0 minus 1. Gives me -1. Look, that pattern's starting to arise. This one, for every time we raise 3, we're going to go up 1. And that's what makes a function, the same thing happening each time. Still have to show your work, though. 1/3 times 3 minus 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. So this one's going to cross the origin. Remember, 0, 0 is the origin? Every time I write 0, 0, it looks like a little face to me. Okay, that's me being silly. So y equals 1/3 times 6 minus 1. 2 minus 1. There we go. And let's look and see if the pattern sticks. Oops, that shouldn't even be 0, 0. It should be 3, 0. Sorry about that. I still like writing 0, 0. That was actually a really good mistake to make, because when I looked back, the pattern wasn't happening. It wasn't going up by 3, that's 0, 0. Okay, so now we just graph these. So we're going to go down to our graph. We're going to do -6, -3, -3, -2, 0, -1, and right when you see 0, you should know that's going to cross an axis. If the x is 0, it's going to cross the y-axis. Look at that, 0, -1. Okay, and 3, 0. Notice that this one is, I hate that keeps popping up. This one is 3, 0. The y is 0, so that it has to hit the x-axis. That's exactly what we were talking about with the x and y intercepts. And then 6, 1. And we're going to draw a line. You need to use a ruler, a straight edge, or ID. I can't use that on the computer. It doesn't allow it. So I apologize that my lines are a little crooked. Okay, be sure that you read through the sections on these. Make sure that you take the notes on these and go through and make sure you understand the difference between finding the x and y intercepts and graphing using a table. Okay, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me.